Hello! Today's lesson is on graphing a line using slope-intercept form. In this class, there are three different forms of linear equations that we're going to learn about. One of them is standard form, which we've already talked about. Standard form, which is the form that you can put an equation in, and if an equation can be written in that form, then we know that it is the equation of a line. Today we're going to be talking about slope-intercept form, which is just another form of an equation. So far you have learned to graph lines using a table of values. You have learned to graph lines using the x and y intercepts, and now we are going to work on learning how to graph lines using the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals m times x plus b. In this form, m is our slope and b is our y-intercept. Remember that slope is the steepness of the line and the y-intercept is the place where the line crosses through the y-axis. In order for an equation to be in slope-intercept form, we have to have the y on the left side of our equation equal to the x term and then the term that is our constant term on the right side of the equation. Okay, remember that slope is going to be a fraction of the rise over the run. Okay, and the b, that is just going to be a number or a constant. That's going to be the place where the line crosses through the y-axis. Okay, so remember this vertical axis right here. This is our y-axis. So here I have given you three different equations. Y equals 1/2 times x plus 2, y equals negative 2x minus 1, and y equals 3 times x plus 2. Let's go ahead and identify the slope and the y-intercept for each of these equations. Okay, each of these equations are already in slope-intercept form. You can see for this one, the y is on the left side of the equation equal to the x term plus the term that is just a constant. Our slope here is 1/2. Okay, your slope is the coefficient of the x term. And remember, it's always a fraction. Okay, and the y-intercept is 2. Okay, so that means that this line right here, y equals 1/2 times x plus 2, is going to cross the y-axis at 2, and it has a slope of 1/2. So I'm actually just going to show you how to graph that. So if it crosses the y-axis at 2, we know that this is a point on the line. And then the slope is rise 1, run 2. So we'd move up 1 to the right 2. This gives us another point on the line. And if I move up 1 to the right 2, okay, the steepness of our line is 1/2. Okay, so this is the line y equals 1/2 x plus 2. And I was able to graph it by using the slope and the y-intercept. Let's go ahead and look at this next equation, y equals negative 2x minus 1. So this equation is already in slope-intercept form. You can see we have y on the left side of our equation. We have the x term and the term that's just a number on the right side of our equation. Our slope is the coefficient of our x term. So in this case, our slope is negative 2. That's the number that's in front of the x. And then our y-intercept is a negative 1. Okay, remember slope is always a fraction of the rise over the run. So to make a whole number a fraction, you would put it over 1. I can actually graph this line using slope-intercept form because I know that it crosses the y-axis at -1. So that gives me 1 point on the line. And then I can use my slope to help to tell me how to move from this point to get to another point on the line. Okay, so the rise here, so my rise is -2 and my run is 1. So that means the change in my y-axis is going to be down 2. So after I know that this line crosses the y-axis at -1, I can plot another point on this line by using the slope. I know the steepness of this line is down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Okay, we can see that this is a negative slope, so it's moving down and to the right. So that is the graph of the line y equals -2x minus 1. Let's go ahead and look at the next one, y equals 3x plus 2. This equation is also already in slope-intercept form. We can see that we have the y on the left side, we have 3x and 2 on the right side. Our x term, 3 times x, has a coefficient of 3. So we know the slope of this line is 3. We know the y-intercept is 2. Okay, so the term that's in place of the b is 2. So in order to graph this line, I'm going to first plot the y-intercept. I know that this line crosses the y-axis at 2. And then from there I'm going to use my slope to help me move to another point that's also on the line. The slope is 3. To make that a fraction, I'm going to put it over 1. Okay, so from my y-intercept, I'm going to move up 3. 1, 2, 3 to the right 1. That gives me another point that's on the line. So this is the graph of the line, y equals 3x plus 2. Now, once you have your equation already in slope-intercept form, graphing a line using slope-intercept form is really fairly easy. The trickiest part about this lesson is going to be putting your equation into slope-intercept form and then being able to identify the slope and y-intercept. So for the remainder of this lesson, we are going to practice that. We are going to write each equation in slope-intercept form and identify the slope and y-intercept. I don't even need you to graph these. All I want you to do is to put them into slope-intercept form, tell me what the slope is, and then tell me what the y-intercept is. So I'm going to do 4 of these with you, and then for your quiz, I'm going to leave you 4 to do on your own. So let's go ahead and start with number 1. 2y plus 4 equals 3x. Oh, sorry about that. I wanted to do a new page. 2y plus 4 equals 3x. Okay? And we want to put this equation into slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is just a form of an equation that we can use to graph. Okay, notice that in slope-intercept form, the y is all by itself on the left side of the equation, equal to the x term and then the term that's just a number. Okay, the m is our slope and the b is our y-intercept. So if we want to put this equation right here into slope-intercept form, we actually need to solve for the y. And I'm just going to put that in a different color. And when I say solve for the y, I mean get the y all by itself. We need to isolate this variable right here. Okay. So, in order to solve for the y, you can see right now that we have 2 times y plus 4 equals 3x, right? We have 2 times y plus 4 equals 3x. So the first thing that we need to do in order to get the y by itself is to get rid of the plus 4. And the way that we get rid of a plus 4 is by doing a minus 4. So we're going to minus 4 from both sides of the equation, which leaves us with 2 times y equals 3 times x minus 4. Our next step in getting this y all by itself is to get rid of the multiplication of 2. And the way that we undo a multiplication is by using a division. If we divide the left side by 2, we have to divide all of the terms on the right side by 2. 2 divided by 2 leaves us with a 1y equal to 3 divided by 2 times by x. We want to leave this as a fraction because that's our slope. And then when we do negative 4 divided by 2, that gives us negative 2. Okay, so this line right here has a slope of 3 over 2. Okay, that's the fraction that's in front of the x. That's the coefficient of the x. Our y-intercept is negative 2. So this line is going to cross through the y-axis at negative 2, and it has a slope of 3 over 2. The next one we're going to do together is number 4. Negative 2 times y minus 7x equals 14. Negative 2 times y minus 7x equals 14. Let me make sure that I did that correctly. Equals a negative 14. Okay? Make sure that when you're doing these, you always write down your equations correctly. So now we're going to put this equation into slope-intercept form, which means we want to solve for the y. Our y is right here on the left side of our equation. And we want to get this equation into this form. So we want the y to be all by itself. You can see we have negative 2 times y minus 7x equals negative 14. So our first step in getting this y by itself is to get rid of the negative 7x, or the minus 7x. So we're going to do a plus 7x to both sides. So that's going to give us negative 2 times y equals negative 14 plus 7x. I'm just going to switch these two around. I'm going to rewrite them in a different order. We can see that in slope-intercept form, the x term is written before the constant term. Now notice that when I switch them, I keep the signs that are in front of them the same. So there's a plus sign in front of the 7x, so it's positive. There is a negative sign in front of the 14, so I have to take that negative sign with it when I rewrite it. So now we have negative 2 times y equals 7 times x minus 14. To get rid of the multiplication of negative 2, I'm going to use division. So I'm dividing everything by negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 gives us 1y equal to 7 divided by negative 2 times by x. And then negative 14 divided by negative 2 is a positive 7. So let's go ahead and identify our slope. That is the coefficient of the x term. So our slope in this case is 7 over negative 2. And then our y-intercept is a positive 7. You guys, as you go through these, please make sure that you are using a calculator for all of your integer operations. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 5 together. So we've got 5x minus y equals negative 2. 5 times x minus y equals negative 2. Okay, and we want to put this equation into slope-intercept form. So in order to do that, I need to isolate the y. I need to get this y all by itself. Okay, So right now we have 5 times x minus y equals negative 2. Let's first get rid of this 5x term by doing a minus 5x, and we have to do that on both sides. Now be very careful. When you write down what you have left on the left side, you have a negative in front of the y. So that's really like having a negative 1 times by y. You have to bring that down when you write down the y, okay? You have to bring down the minus sign that's in front of it because it actually is a negative y. So now we have equals negative 2 minus 5x. I'm just going to rearrange the order of these two terms and rewrite it as negative 5 times x minus 2. So now we have negative 1 times y equals negative 5x minus 2. To get rid of the multiplication of negative 1, we're going to divide everything by negative 1, which gives us y equals positive 5 over 1 x, and then a negative 2 divided by a negative 1 is a positive 2. Notice how on this one, a negative divided by a negative, I just rewrote that as a positive, and I left the slope as a fraction of 5 over 1. And then my y-intercept is 2. Okay, the next one that I want to look at with you is number 8. So we've got 5 plus 2/5 x equals y. Okay, now in order to get this equation into slope-intercept form, we want the y term on the left side of the equation and the x term and the constant on the right side of the equation. This equation really is already in slope-intercept form. Can you guys see that? If I rewrite this and just switch these two sides around, we would have y equals 5 plus 2/5 x. And I can just rearrange these terms as well. And all of the rearranging that I'm doing are all legal math moves, okay? So we end up with y equals 2/5 times x plus 5. And you guys know when I say legal math moves, if we have 5 plus 4, we can rewrite that as 4 plus 5, and it doesn't change the value of this, right? Okay, so that's how I can rearrange these two. We're not changing the value of anything. We're just rewriting the terms and adding in a different order. So now the slope of this line is 2 over 5, and the y-intercept is 5. Okay, so for your quiz, I want you to do number 2, number 3, number 6, and number 7. You are putting each of these in slope-intercept form. It would probably be best if you come into a breakout room and do these on the board for me so I can make sure that you are doing them correctly. If you are watching this lesson outside of class time and you need some extra help, please come to class or come to Math Lab and we can help you with being able to do this. So today, what I want you to be able to do is to write an equation in slope-intercept form and identify the slope and y-intercept. We will continue this lesson on graphing a line using the slope-intercept form tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and get you started with number 7. I was just looking at that one and I want to make sure that you can get that one started. So I'm going to put this on a new page. Y minus y minus 3 times x plus 2 equals negative 1. So in order to put this equation in slope-intercept form, you first need to distribute this negative 3. So that's going to be negative 3x minus 6. Okay, and then you guys can solve from there. Okay, you're isolating the y. So in order to get the y by itself, you are going to have to get rid of the negative 3x on the left side and also the subtract 6. So with that said, you guys have an awesome day. If you need any help at all with this, please come to class or math lab. You can always text me or email me or Miss Kohler. Okay, we're both here to help you be successful in this class. So you guys have a really great day, and I will see you in the next lesson.